All right, hey everyone, welcome to the ZBD Tools Workshop. We'll go ahead and get started. So we've already covered this, but ZBD provides plug and play fully functional Lightning Network support via simple API. That's what we do as a business to business. So we have a few different things that I wanted to share with you that could be useful within the hackathon. So here we have an SDK that connects to our API that will allow for quite easy implementation of the ZBD API. So you can read all the documentation. I shared the slide deck in the Telegram chat. So as an example, you can see some payloads, available API methods, and like how to go about making an API call. So I showed yesterday how to build like a simple Lightning app, and remember it was probably like 15 lines of code or so. This is like just a few, maybe like less than 10 lines of code to be able to execute an API call and get back an invoice, or what we call a charge. So you can read through the documentation. We have decoding charges, getting charges, creating them, creating the static invoice or static charge as we call it, or LN URL pays. So we have all of that available for you in the SDK in a very simple way. You can also check out the documentation. You can click these links and let me know if you have any problems with the slide deck or accessing the slide deck. We also have one available for Python that I wrote. So I wrote a community SDK. So if you have any problems with this particular Python community SDK, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I'm happy to help you with it. You can see all the example usage here, how to install it. You just type pip install ZBD, and then you're able to import the library or package, and then you're able to create an instance of an object with your API key. You can optionally add a callback or webhook URL, and then you can begin making function calls just as easy as the other SDK. So for example, with one line, I can get my wallet details, so I can get the balance of the wallet. Same with like creating different charges, making payments, getting payment details that you previously have completed. So all the documentation's here. Let me know if you have any questions about the SDK. Next, you can kind of see some examples. So breaking down like what each endpoint is in our documentation. You have charges, which is to receive Bitcoin directly to your project wallet. This is the same thing as an invoice. So you can see it requires an amount that's based in millisats. You can see it needs a description and then a call. It doesn't require a callback URL, but you can specify one. That way you know when there's a state change, whether it's expired or completed or it failed. So that way you can keep, you can pull the endpoint and actually know whether or not it has been paid, or just get the updates. Here you can like pay an invoice. So this will pay an invoice directly from the Bitcoin wallet that you're using. In this case, it's like a project wallet, and I'll show what the user interface looks like. You have a withdrawal request. So this is an LN URL withdrawal. That's the QR code that allows you to create a QR code and then allow the user to click it and then move the funds out of your project wallet to their own wallet to allow a withdrawal. That's why it's called withdrawal request. It's quite straightforward as well. It's amount and description, and optionally you can specify an internal ID and callback URL. You can send a payment to a Lightning address. So as an example, you can pay to the human readable identifier that looks like an email with real-time settlement. So then you can see amounts specified in millisats, you can see the comment, and you can see the Lightning address that you're sending it to here. And you can run this command, and it's that easy to then send the payment to the Lightning address. Same is true for gamertag. This is like our internal ZBD identifier, so you can use that optionally if you want to. I would recommend the Lightning address as a method of executing payout, since that's an open network identifier. We also have key send available, and this is what the key send endpoint looks like. You have an amount, you have a pub key, TLV records, metadata, and then optionally a callback URL. We also have an endpoint to get the BTC USD exchange rate. So if you need to get the price of Bitcoin in order to show like, okay, if you're spending like 10,000 sats on this particular item for e-commerce, this is the equivalent that you're spending in dollars. We have an endpoint to get you the exchange rate, so then you can calculate the conversion from sats to USD to show that to the user. Go ahead. I couldn't hear, I'm sorry. We provide the price of the Bitcoin. We use a few different exchange rates to calculate it.
So we just need to pass the quantity of SAT and they give us the equivalent, equal to USD.
Yeah, if you call this command here, like ZB, after you've instantiated the object, you can call .get BTC USD exchange, and then you can actually get back the price of Bitcoin in dollars for 1 Bitcoin. So then you can calculate the sats, and then my SDK will actually you can pass in sats as the value, and you can get back the like exact amount with the SDK that I created.
And that's an average of some different exchanges, or is it just one exchange?
I think it's an average of 3 different exchanges, if I remember correctly, but don't quote me on that. It might have changed since I was on the product team. So that way we can get like as closely as possible. Before we get into that, I wanted to show like the developer dashboard. So here you can see the developer dashboard. You have like this home page wherein you can complete your profile. You can find on the right hand side like all of the documentation, the GitHub. If you need to reach out to customer support, you can. You also have different guides and walkthroughs as well as recommended actions. You can create an account. You can even get a guide to send to Lightning address to receive payments to get started. You can get an API overview. So from here, you can go, the way that you would use this application or web application is you would create a project. We can call it Kubo Plus. We can give it a description. We're doing awesome hackathon things. And then you could give it a website. We'll just use the NBD one. We have a minimum of 150 characters, so we'll just paste over it. Now we're hitting above the maximum description. Okay, so then initially it goes into like a sandbox mode, but then we can go into live, and then we have a API key that we can use. If anyone needs any sats, you're planning to use the ZBD API, just let me know and I'll give you some sats that you can use to load up your wallet. From there, I already have some sats, so I'm going to transfer into the Kubo Plus wallet. I'll transfer 1,000 sats, and then we'll go back and get our API key. So it's find here. So now we have transferred in 1,000 sats. We have 1 transaction. And we can get started with the playground. So Andre Neves, our CTO at ZBD, created this awesome playground that you can use using Replit. So here we can follow the guide, and this link is included within the presentation. So here, there's like a video that you can watch if you'd like. I'm just going to go ahead and use the template. It'll open up an IDE with infrastructure already set up. And then we just have to essentially set up the secret. So let me go back here, find where that's located in the guide. All right, so we just need to create the ZBD API key. Let me find where secret is. You can tell I turned 30 just the other day because I can barely see this. All right, so secret. Here we go. So I'm going to paste in ZBD API key. This is like an environmental variable stored on Replit. So I'm going to copy my API key. I'm going to paste my API key. So now my secret is set. And now I'm going to run the playground. And this is really great if you're looking to just see how things work within the API. So it'll just take a moment to run. All right, so this is the page that you'll land on. Up here, you'll just go to Open ZBD Playground. Again, it'll just take a moment to run. Here you can see like all the different playground modules available. So then if you're curious, like, okay, we talked about the API, we talked about how it worked, we saw an example yesterday. If you want to see examples in JavaScript, like how this works, for example, you can enter the information through a form field, hit submit, and then it'll begin making a request to the API, and it'll return back a charge. So then you could actually, like, let's see if the ZBD, oh, they're not clickable. So if you wanted to, you could copy this invoice and actually pay it. You can see the status is pending. So if this was paid for an e-commerce use case or like content microblogging use case where you wanted to use it for tipping, you could the user could copy that or click a button, open it up in the browser extension, and then pay it. And I haven't forgot to send out the browser extension. I'll send that out later today. Yeah, so you can run through all of these different sort of playground modules. All this code is open source, so you can view like what the code is in JavaScript or React that is being used to perform these actions. So there's also a lot of different starter code-based examples. So here I copied the ID of the charge that I created, and then I pasted it in to get charged by ID, which then returned back the charge information. So that could be used like to pull to see whether or not a charge has been paid or not, if you wanted to do it in a bit easier fashion than having to like add it to database and check it and then use callbacks as an example. That's another way you could go about doing that sort of functionality. And you have this available for withdrawal requests. You have available for Lightning address and other utilities. So here's an example of the fetch BTC exchange rate. So you fetched it and you can see the BTC price at which time based on a timestamp. So that's an example of what the actual request looks like. Same with like decoding payment requests or invoices and making payments to charges. So you have the sandbox available. You can run it directly in Replit, so you don't even need to clone a repository onto your computer. And most of the code is held in like these component files. So then you can take a look and review it. So you can see like making a request, fetching the data, and then setting the state basically, and how this code works. Cool. From there, we also have on Replit starter code base with JavaScript. So if you want to use this template, or you can clone, I can add the GitHub as well, where you can clone this. Basically, it's just a Next.js template with the ZBD node SDK installed. So then you can quickly get started firing payments that way, or receiving payments that way. I built this one also for Python. This uses the community Python SDK and Django that I showed yesterday. So it's a little easier than what I showed yesterday since you have the SDK. But basically, it's just a starter code with everything, the basic setup for you. Then lastly, on my GitHub, I also have a link. I was inspired by the presentations earlier in the week, or last week now, and I have open source like a few different application repositories that I built to teach myself and to show myself some examples of using these in action. So you can also benefit from looking at the different examples. So here you can see they're pinned. We have the template files that I showed. So these are the repositories I mentioned for the templates, so you can clone these and use them and get started out the box. Or you can look at the examples for the pay to Lightning address application that we built yesterday. You can look at a payment splitting example, payouts where you can pay multiple Lightning addresses from the one project wallet, as well as static charges. So how to create them, how to view them, what does it look like for someone to pay them, what does my server get back, it'll show you those examples, so you can get started using those. And the link is included. It's my GitHub here. So that's pretty much it. I have one more slide that I'm going to add here. I can't show it because of the recording, but I have a slide where I'll give you an invitation code to the developer dashboard. So then, as an example, you can go to the developer dashboard, you can enter an invite code, and then sign up, and you can bypass like the normal things that you would have to go through, so you can get started building faster. Yeah, so this is what it would look like to sign up. You'd enter your name, email, password, and I'll give you an invitation code that you'll enter here, and then you can get started building with the ZBD API. Let me know if you decide to go that direction, so then I can give you sats, so you can get started building, and then you can follow the other steps that I showed here with creating a project, moving the sats into your wallet, and then you can start firing payments or receiving payments. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything that I had to present. So build with ZBD. Thank you very much.